Live from our 7 Tasmania studios, your nightly news with Kim Miller begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Tasmanians are being ripped off at the supermarket checkout compared to our interstate counterparts. Mystery shoppers finding the prices for identical grocery items can be much more expensive because we have fewer choices to shop.
The major sting at the checkout. Tasmanians are paying more for their groceries than any other state, and a lack of competition is to blame.
Tasmanians are getting smashed by high food and grocery prices, higher than anywhere else in the country, with the lowest incomes.
Consumer group Choice sent mystery shoppers to 81 stores across the country, comparing prices for household staples, including bread and milk, but the cheapest supermarket isn't an option here. Aldi's basket coming in at just over $51, Woolworths more than $68 and Coles over $69.
Places like Tasmania and the NT that don't have Aldi, well, their options are fewer, so they will pay higher.
With Tasmanians being slugged more to fill up the trolley, there are growing calls for the German giant and other chains to set up shop.
Competition is what we need down here to drive the prices down and to help with the cost of living.
But Aldi has put a Tasmanian venture in the too hard basket, saying at this stage it has no plans to open stores here.
It's beyond disappointing that Aldi are not even looking at coming here.
Surely there's got to be a way that we can entice them down here.
Another blow for household budgets as price pressures impact shopping decisions.
Front and centre for our government to respond to those cost of living pressures, whether it's at the grocery shop or at the petrol bowser.
The next Choice report is due to be handed down in September as the federal government looks to rein in the surging grocery bill.
Australia's grocery sector is one of the most concentrated in the world, with a significant market share for the two biggest players. So it's only fair that we have considerable price scrutiny.
And put the big chains on notice. Victoria Risto, 7 Tasmania News.
A major Tasmanian gas-fired power station has been turned back on for the first time in 5 years. With the state's dry summer leaving dam levels low, Labor has pushed for answers on what the government's future plans are to make sure the lights stay on.
Labor had all eyes on energy during question time.
Tasmania's shortage of power is damaging our economy and costing the state thousands of safe, secure, well-paid jobs.
Calling for investment in renewables, with hydro reaching its lowest dam level in 6 years. Its combined cycle gas turbine turned on for the first time since 2019.
Yes, it's on at the moment for commercial reasons, and of course we're managing very low rainfall. I mean, don't you want us to have options?
If Tasmania was a place where investment could be made and wind farms could be built, we wouldn't need to turn on a gas-fired power station.
Also making waves, the Antarctic program's base potentially being shipped to Fremantle after the WA Ports Minister indicated he's open to discussions.
This would be a disaster for the Tasmanian economy and for many hundreds of local jobs across many industries. And it's a threat that's now more real than ever.
The Premier is set to meet with Federal Minister Tanya Plibersek next week, where he says he'll be reconfirming that the Australian Antarctic Division should stay here in Tasmania. He also said today he'd be bringing up other issues such as the salmon industry on the West Coast. It was the last sitting day before the government's 100-day plan is up. Only today was much awaited legislation tabled to allow pets in rentals. Parliament now set to return in 5 weeks. Ruby Cairns, 7 Tasmania News.
And the Prime Minister has weighed in on the future of the Antarctic Division. Anthony Albanese says he wants to see the program's base stay in Tasmania, despite interest from Western Australia.
Hobart is very close to the Antarctic, and it's played a really important historic role, and I want to see that continue into the future.
The PM making a late afternoon visit to the Burnie port, touring the newest ship loader and spruiking a recent $18 million funding boost to the project. There are significant barriers to break down, according to the former Commissioner for Children and Young People, Leanne McLean, who officially stepped down today after 6 years in the job. During her time, she was responsible for ending the routine practice of strip searching children while in custody and implementing a government strategy to improve young people's well-being.
And that provides a fabulous foundation and an architecture for us to build on to help promote the rights and wellbeing of our children.
Isabel Crompton is set to resume the role temporarily. A new support service for new parents has opened. Gidget House is now operating in Hobart, offering 10 free specialist counselling sessions for those living with depression and anxiety. 1 in 5 mothers are impacted by perinatal mental health issues, especially in regional areas where services can be harder to access.
Operating the leading perinatal mental health support services here in Hobart.
The federal government's committed $15 million for the Gidget Foundation nationwide. Businesses and community leaders are braving the cold at MyState Bank Arena with the Vinnie's annual CEO sleepout underway tonight. It's raising vital funds and awareness for Tasmanians sleeping rough, experiencing or at risk of homelessness.
There's very little shelter here, and that's the intent. It's not a comfortable evening.
In a rich country like Australia, we really shouldn't see as much homelessness as we do. And so we just want to support the community and try and curb that change.
The goal is to raise $200,000 for the organisation. The state government says any future ice skating facility will require help from the private sector. Today, releasing a report featuring concept plans, designs and cost details of a future recreational ice rink. But it can't be done alone. Government Minister Nick Duigan committing to continue working with the ice sports community with an expression of interest package for potential investors soon to follow. A feasibility study is available online. The country's first art hotel is celebrating a milestone birthday this month, marking 2 decades since Hobart's IXL Jam Factory was transformed into the Henry Jones Art Hotel.
More than just one of Tasmania's iconic sandstone buildings, the Henry Jones Art Hotel possessing 2 centuries of history.
There's so much history within these walls, from Henry Jones himself to George Peacock before him. Dating
back to the 1800s and housing one of the nation's largest employers, the IXL Jam Factory.
Henry Jones came along in about 1870. He learnt every aspect of this business, of the jam making business.
Taking over the company from George Peacock before it was neglected in the 90s.
This was a derelict site for quite a few decades before this was actually renovated.
The space was given a new lease on life by architect Robert Morris Nunn, merging history, modernism and art.
That dialogue between old and new is fundamental part of what this place is about.
Now an evolving art gallery showcasing the work from some of Tasmania's emerging artists, while also upholding the building's original features, with rich history packed into every nook and cranny.
Convict hair in the mortar of the building, little ringlets popping out.
On a hot day, guests have even said they can still smell the sweet remnants of sticky strawberry and raspberry jam on these original timber beams. Over the past 2 decades, over 500,000 guests have stayed at the hotel, with locals and visitors travelling from far and wide to embrace a slice of Tasmania's rich history. Rebecca Gaidaneris, 7 Tasmania News.
Children and families in Clarence now have more access to before and after school care following multi-million-dollar upgrades to the childcare facility in Bellerive, helping to increase extra intakes to accommodate more working families.
More than double the capacity, from 20 to 45 children every day.
There was a period where we couldn't operate, which was a huge disadvantage to families, so they are all extremely excited that our building is now open.
The expansion at the centre will also help facilitate several school holiday programs. Devonport has been crowned Tasmania's top tourism town for a 2nd year in a row. The Northwest Centre is among 3 destinations selected as part of the search for the pick of the crop. Stanley named as a best tiny town, with Richmond taking up the small town category. The winners will go on to battle it out on the national stage, representing Tasmania at an awards ceremony in September. The state's peak nursing union has voiced its concerns over the treatment of paediatric patients with mental health conditions at the Launceston General Hospital. It claims its members are being silenced by the hospital's management after multiple attempts to raise their concerns.
And that's included instances of those patients being secluded within a particular unit, which is a locked unit.
Members are expected to meet with management again tomorrow and hopeful answers will be provided. A woman who died in a single vehicle crash on the East Timor Highway last year was speeding, high on drugs and not wearing a seatbelt at the time, according to a coroner. 29-year-old Jalissa Ferguson was seen overtaking other drivers at excessive speeds near Hillwood in the minutes leading up to the crash. She was killed on impact after being thrown from her car when it hit a concrete drain on the wrong side of the road. The coroner said her actions placed her at a high risk of death and that risk sadly eventuated. Well, future Tasmanian Olympians can now be identified in a split second. With a simple jump, computer analysis at the TIS can predict what sports a person might be good at and even prevent injuries.
This simple motion doesn't seem like much to the naked eye, but the information gleaned paints a very detailed picture.
It's a bit like your own movement signature. The way that an athlete applies force or the way that an individual applies force is very, very individual.
After studying these movement signatures at the Tasmanian Institute of Sport, Dr. Cowan is now teaching Tassie coaches to interpret the data and use it to identify potential high-performance athletes.
What skills in their sport they might be good at. Helps with some talent identification as well in terms of what sport an athlete might excel at, as well as certain what positions we could put them in their sport to excel as well.
This force plate technology has been around for about a decade, but its full potential is only just being unlocked. By simply jumping on these pads, coaches have access to over 150 data sets, which can help improve performance and even predict injuries before they happen.
Ideally capturing someone in the performance phase before they get injured and then looking at mapping them through their recovery phase.
From netball to rowing, there's no limit to its potential application.
A lot of sports that their athletes are like, oh, well, I don't jump in my sport. For rowing, we can identify if someone produces their force in a certain way. How they move in the boat can actually be told by how they move on the force plate.
Nick Kelly, 7 Tasmania News. Veteran footballer Brad Cox-Goodyer knows better than to rely on last year's victory over Queensland when they play a rematch on enemy soil. He'll be leading a radically different side this year, stocked with young talent, while the Queenslanders have been out recruiting.
A couple of players that have come in that didn't play last year that have had AFL experience, so I reckon they'll be a bit stronger as well. So, yeah, it'll be a bigger challenge than last year going up there with a strengthened side.
Although the women are looking for revenge, first-year captain Alice Robinson says the hunger is there no matter the stage.
Footy is footy at the end of the day, so we always want to try and play our highest level at club level as well. So just kind of the passion, we want to try and bring that onto the big stage.
They play at Bond University on Saturday. The course record is expected to tumble in this year's instalment of the Devil's Cardigan, a gruelling 106-kilometre gravel race through the hills around Derby as interstate riders arrive at Launceston Airport. 7-time Australian champion Brendan Johnston is one of the favourites to take it out, in form after a trip to the States, finishing the top 15 at Unbound, a 330-kilometre flat race through Kansas.
Since I've been back, I've kind of worked on that shorter form, and yeah, I seem to be going quite well, and I've come up nicely. Yeah, just changed the training a little bit, but yeah, it's general fitness is going to be big after training for that event and also completing it. So it's complementary for sure.
Last year's runner-up Peter Mullins isn't racing this year, but using her knowledge of the course to guide her team.
I think it's probably the best rounded gravel course I've ever done. There's a second descent that's a little bit mountain bike orientated, which makes it a little bit exciting, and then a hell of a lot of climbing. 470
riders will race, a third of those coming from interstate. Like a Seljack Cup winners, Glenorchy will start their Australia Cup journey against Northwest Sydney Spirit in the knockout round of 32. They'll need to make the trip north for the clash sometime between mid-July and late August, but the schedule is yet to be confirmed.
Good evening. Hobart 11 today. Launceston, Devonport and Burnie all reached 13 degrees. St Helens the high with 14. Lyowini kept the cold crown with -4, just in front of the -3s at Strawn, Burnie and Smithton. Low Head and King Island 13. Bushy Park 12 today. Flinders Island, Friendly Beaches and Strawn all 11. Clifton Beach topped the rainfall numbers today with 5 millimetres after 8 millimetres yesterday as extensive low cloud moved over the south and east, clearer skies over the north. A spiral of cloud is over South Australia and Victoria as a band of higher cloud streams through the nation further north. Tomorrow, a high pressure ridge moves over Tasmania. An area of low pressure resides over Victoria and New South Wales. The breezes tomorrow south-southeasterly to 20 knots over most coastal waters, but southeasterlies to 25 knots over the east with 2-metre swells. Icy roads again tomorrow morning, and a road weather alert exists for the west, the northwest coast and central north, along with the central plateau. Hobart 11 today, looking for 13 tomorrow with a shower or two. Huonville the same, a top of 12 for Campania. Launceston a top of 13 degrees and partly cloudy. Devonport a morning frost, 13 the maximum, and 13 also for Georgetown with a sunny afternoon on the way. 13 for Burnie, sunny as well. Morning frost, a sunny afternoon for Strawn, 12 the top. 1 overnight for Wynyard and a top of 13 tomorrow. 13 for St Helens and partly cloudy, the same for Swansea, but a possible shower there, and we get further south over Port Arthur, a shower or two and 13. On Saturday, fine apart from isolated showers over the west and far south. Fine and mostly sunny on Sunday. Areas of frost and fog though to start things off. And on Monday, fine and partly cloudy with light winds, a possible shower over the northwest. Sunny and 20 in Perth, partly cloudy in Adelaide, a shower or two for Melbourne and Canberra. A few showers over Sydney, 17 there, but the all clear's been given for Brisbane and Darwin. Bit of cloud over Hobart, it's currently 8 degrees, 9 in Launceston, and right now in Devonport it's 9 degrees. Kim, that's our winter solstice forecast.
Thank you very much, Murph, and that is all we have time for this Thursday. Have a great night. Thanks for joining us. Good night.